Over on Disney Plus, arriving on Friday the 29th of November, we have a rockumentary. Yes, it's called Beatles 64. And here's a clip.
We were just like, we're in America. America.
It's great being here in New York. Okay.
Washington.
Oh, is that the place? I don't know. Washington. I'm just moving so fast.
They wanted to know everything about America. The food, the groups, the dancing. And they loved it.
So you can't cast your mind back, Hannah, to 1964, but I can tell you that Beatlemania had swept Britain and the Fab Four were off to crack America. Well, this is a one-off documentary. It's produced by Martin Scorsese, and it features a lot of footage that was shot by these two brothers, Albert and David Maysles, on that tour to America, where the Beatles were going to they were going to appear on the Ed Sullivan Show. And you see a lot of footage of that performance, which I hadn't seen before. I hadn't seen it in its entirety. Yeah, Beatlemania breaking out in the States and the screaming fans. There's a lot of interviews with fans that are quite entertaining. And American musicians who kind of hung out with them, including the Ronettes, and just how they're slightly bemused by what's going on around them, unsurprisingly. It's just a reminder of how different the Beatles were to anyone else who had gone before, and just how much charm they had as well. They were very funny, and like there are later interviews with George Harrison and a comparatively recent one with Paul McCartney. And, you know, Harrison's very funny. He's saying, yeah, everyone from Liverpool thinks they're a comedian. But, yeah, they were very funny, especially all together. And then there's this rather kind of obnoxious American DJ as somehow inveigled his way into their hotel room and is just hanging out with them all the time. So it's great. And, in fact, funnily enough, Paul McCartney released a book of photography of that tour, which I was given. It's called Eye of the Storm. And they're interviewing him at the exhibition of those photographs. So it's good stuff. And I mean, people were, you know, there were a lot of people who were anti the Beatles, and because the kind of whole screaming teenage girls thing was a relatively recent phenomenon, and it worried parents. You know, they didn't like it. They didn't want their kids listening to this music, these Brits. So yeah, I mean, if you're a Beatles fan, it's absolutely required viewing. But it's just a fascinating look back at a particular point in time, and it reflects the fact. It sort of talks about the fact that Kennedy had been assassinated, and almost kind of the optimism of the Beatles kind of filled that void in some way in America. Anyway, it's really, really worth a look, and of course the music is fantastic. So and lots of live footage, lots of footage of them hanging out backstage. Lots of interviews, old and new. So, yeah, check it out. It's very good. What do you think, Hannah?
Do you know what? It's funny, isn't it? The Beatles, in any scenario, you put it on and everyone seems to know the words in every generation, even my children. And that's testament, I suppose, to how good a band really is. And I think of sort of other bands coming through which are similar. And arguably, someone's going to hang me for this, but arguably something like Take That, you know, eventually, I'm not suggesting they're the Beatles at any level, but their music, it sort of, it transcends it. You know, there are other generations that enjoy it. And I just think that this is interesting because, like anything else, a rockumentary, you get to learn lots about the band, lots about them, like you say about cracking America and how well or not well received that was. And I look back now and I remember the kind of those days, things they sort of started an era of massive change, didn't they, and liberation, particularly for women as well. And you can see why parents were kind of worried, although arguably the worries that face us parents these days are, I would say, are slightly worse. But it's really interesting, and you don't have to be a Beatles fan, although, you know, I'm sure lots of you are, to enjoy this, because it's just incredibly interesting. It's part of our history. It's part of our world, our life, you know, our makeup, really.